could have been recorded. So it was actually
for me going in this. I thought it was a meeting, John, to lay out like the proposal, like what the podcast like.
It was. It is.
All right. Casey, is this typical of the way we start our show?
It's been a while. I don't remember.
Yeah. And that sounds means it's the start of another Missal for the Masses. I'm your host, Gary.
I'm Casey.
I'm the guest, Josh.
I'm second guest, Greg.
So, welcome, guys. This is the Chaplain System Motor Pod, where we talk about our world of G.I. Joe. And for those of you that are new to listening to Chaplain System Motor Pod, Josh is from AfterActionReport.net. And Greg is a first-time guest, and Greg is also with...
I'm part of After Action Report too. I'm actually one of the authors of the book series in their command files, which I think you want to talk about today.
Yeah, a
We
little
do.
bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and so this is a video podcast. It's going to be released on YouTube as well as on the my normal audio only stream. And for those that are listening in on the, Josh is holding up the book to the screen of the command files. Well, now that he put it down.
There it is. This is the second one, the newest one, Volume 2. Oh,
I like that cover a lot.
by Mark Pennington. And it's actually a wraparound cover that has the characters that are in the book on the back. Got Don Marino there in the front. So that's Volume 1, or Volume 2. And Volume 1. Dun, dun, dun. So this one's called the A-Teams. Volume 2 is Support Elements. So that's, again, a Mark Pennington wraparound cover. Rock and Roll, Roadblock. So
Very cool.
that's the two command files books that we have available now.
And for those that don't know or remember, Mark Pennington is one of the members of the Hasbro design team from the later 80s. He's also a comic book artist, did a bunch of DC work back in the day. And he's also with Operation Recall.
Yep.
So Greg is the author of the Command Files Volume 1, Volume 2, and future volumes as well. So Greg, so you started working with After Action Report in what capacity? How did you get to know Josh?
Well, the origin of command files. Well, I don't think you fully articulate. Command files itself is a character guide. It's a character guide of G.I. Joe characters that I always wanted. You guys remember Marvel released the G.I. Joe Order of Battle way back in '86, which basically was a reprinting of our file cards off the toy packaging. But then we had new Herb Trimpe art, and it was a whole like almost like a Marvel Universe official handbook that Marvel was doing, but it was for G.I. Joe, which got me really jazzed. It's like 4-issue limited series. It had Joes, Cobras, and vehicles. And when I was collecting G.I. Joe and getting into the cartoons or whatnot, I was kind of like miffed that Marvel never really continued that series. It was a 4-issue limited series, and it never continued past 87 into those characters. So in the back of my mind, I always yearned to put together these profiles just to keep them together in some one compendium. So fast forward all the way to 2013, I got the kind of the itch to start designing things. My background is in business with a little bit dabble of graphic design, but I really just took to wanted to go back and understand it, or kind of design pages of a G.I. Joe encyclopedia, the one I always wanted. So 2013, I started doing dabble here and there and posted on Instagram. And for like a 10-year span, I got to a point where I did maybe 100, 150 Joes. I think almost 200, and a smidgen of Cobras. And over that course of that almost decade, people were responding, "Hey, where can I get this book?" And I said, "Nah, it's just digital. It's just my, fictitious. It's just my fantasy kind of vision of what I wanted this to be." I got to a point where in the beginning of 2022, I said, "I got enough here. Maybe I should explore like figuring out how to make it a real book." And so I went to. It had to have been like 250 pages or so that I went and got looked up price quotes for vendors to see how I would do it by myself, and it was just so cost prohibitive to just do one little book. I would have to do huge print runs to do it. So I decided to say, what did it look like putting together as a PDF? So I put a PDF, and I found this online digital platform that made it look like a book, and you can open it up, and all the profiles for G.I. Joe are kind of in this digital format that I just started sprinkling out there. I put it on a G.I. Joe Facebook group, and I said, "Hey, I was always miffed that the Avengers and X-Men, Justice League, and Star Wars got all these character guys. Why not G.I. Joe?" And I just put it out there, and all of a sudden, maybe like within half an hour, Josh jumped into that Facebook discussion and said, "What did you call it, Josh?" He said, "Hey, this is the grandchild or nephew cousin of whatever Carson's doing, whatever Dan Clinton's doing. These are like noted kind of authors of G.I. Joe books themselves, but they were more like toy slanted pieces. And I didn't know these guys at the time, Carson Metaxas and Dan Clinton Smith, who they were, but Josh tagged them, and all of a sudden there was like huge excitement on the thread. People are like, "Where can I get this? What can I do?" Then Josh hit me up on the side. "Hey, would you be interested in actually making your designs into an actual book?" I didn't know Josh at the time that he had just recently published After Action Report Volume 1, which is the comics guide for Larry Hama Marvel era books. And he was in, I guess Devil's Due was in the works already.
Yep.
So he's already had experience with books, and he's a Joe fan. And I had the content already pretty much done. The book was what you see published today. What I had already done at that point was maybe 80-90% done. So the book was pretty much set to go. And Josh and I immediately decided, hey, it was just a perfect time. And you remember too, that's
what the page design looked like.
Yeah. So it was like 2022. So that was in the middle of like coming out of COVID, and everybody was like getting nostalgia and spending money on Kickstarters and all these other projects. So it was just a really good time to get that project going, get in the mix, because Josh already built this great momentum with these comic guides, and character guides are right up the alley in terms of like kind of being in that crosshair mix, because there wasn't really a character guide at that time other than like Pablo Hidalgo's book. I think in 2008 he published one around at the same time IDW got the comics license. He brought up a book, but for me that wasn't quite there what I wanted to do. But anyway, I talked a lot, Gary. Is there anything that
well, I just wanted to I'll just bring in a little bit of my aspect. Is that when I saw Greg's work and the fact that he had already done like 200 of the Joe characters and was already done, it was like a no-brainer. I'm like, hey, let's do this. And it's been a very good symbiotic relationship now. And Greg's a huge part of our After Action Report team. And, we have 2 volumes finished now. So, and, the second one just came out this Christmas. We kickstarted it in the summer, and then the volume 1 was like a 2023 or something like that. So it's brand new. The volume 2 is brand new, and volume 1 is only a year and a half old or so. So they're still really new. And it was just been like perfect. I mean, for After Action Report to have comics and characters, you know what I mean? And, the cool thing is that the command files doesn't even mention the toys really. It's all about like file cards, cartoon, comic, media, games, covers the characters where they show up in those things. I And
really
there's so much on toys already out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think, thanks for hitting that up, Josh. So I should actually explain to the audience what the file cards, command files is. Each character page not only transcribes the actual file card text from packaging, that the things that that Larry Hama and the Hasbro writers wrote, but I did a little extra spin on there too. I actually translated a lot of their specialties, schools, and everything to modern day military occupational specialties. I kind of like went from the 80s and brought it to modernize them. I added extra things like a rating system in there, as if you liked old role-playing games, these characters have different attributes that they have there. So for me, when I and also too, like Marvel trading cards and Marvel Universe handbooks have these like rating systems for skills and power sets and whatnot. I wanted to have that in my GI Joe character guide. So for every one of these characters, they have attributes and ratings based on weapon skills and how well they're in intelligence, combat engineering, etc. So that's there too. I didn't merely want to just take file card information and plop it in there, but I also wanted to add a little flavor of what I wanted to see in the guide. And then not only that, as Josh was mentioning, I wanted to be very graphic heavy in terms of providing examples of the character in its kind of traditional form or well-known form, but also give examples of where that character would had appeared in other media. So Flint, for example, I would have Flint in how he would show up in the Sunbow cartoon, how he showed up in the Deep cartoon in his Eco Warriors gear, his different flavors of how he's represented in different continuities of the comic. Even have an image of him, how he was represented in the Retaliation movie. So those type of things. So I wanted Marvel's order of battle like on steroids. It basically build on like what's there, but also say, hey, these are what the characters has been. A lot of people are ask me, what continuity is it, Greg? And I'm basically answer is it's like every continuity. It's like I wanted to get the core essence of the character out there in terms of kind of laying the foundation of who he is based on that file card, but then also represent what those interpretations, those representations on other media would be based off that.
So here's an example of Scarlett's page where he's showing exactly what he's just talking about. So it has all the different versions of Scarlett from comic to cartoon to.
You got Sigma 6 there.
Yeah, Sigma 6.
Resolute.
So that is an example of exactly what Greg is talking about. That's how the book covers the major characters.
What made it cool too is remember hooking up with Josh was 2022. That was at the 40th anniversary of A Real American Hero too. So I thought it was my doing this. It was almost my love letter to G.I. Joe, to saying, hey, I appreciate all the work, all the creators, all the different media, all the interpretations, all it kind of put it all in one place to give a nod and a tribute to the whole franchise property.
Yeah, I like how you're like covering everything a little bit for every person, their favorite Joe. Like I could care less about Sigma 6, but I love that it's there for the people who do love it. I talk to people at conventions and they're big Sigma 6 fans, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a nod to kind of where it's been, where these characters have been. So again, I think the baseline for all these characters, book one had about, what was it, Josh, 110 character profiles.
More
yeah,
than more. Yeah.
And then the second book is like 130 characters. Now, granted, just set expectations, there are some characters that don't get the whole profile. They get a half page because they didn't really maybe didn't do much in the toys or the comics or the cartoons, but there are some that were afforded 2-page spreads, like Josh showed Scarlet. Snake Eyes, of course, had one. And the new book, I gave Kamakura a 2-page spread because he's kind of important in terms of the Devil's Due era, and also just showing up in terms of his history, going way back to Larry Hama's run, and how he's kind of important today in today's comic stories. So give a little kind of a spotlight on the favorites and the ones that have been given a bigger a bigger spotlight in the whole G.I. Joe 40 plus years now.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, and one couple things to note. I'll just say one thing that I learned from Hooded Cobra Commander was every figure is someone's favorite. Yeah. So by even doing the half page of somebody like Steamroller or Toll Booth, because they are, there's somebody out there, with all the guys that love Snake Eyes and Flint, there's somebody out there that's like, you know what, Toll Booth was my guy, and there's an example of that for every character, because G.I. Joe was such this immense brand with so many rabid fans that it's great that every character gets a spotlight, no matter what. Even if it's a small spotlight, they still get their time to shine on the page, and I think that's wonderful. But
there are Dr. Link Talbot fans, right? Combat veterinarian. No, sorry.
We know a bunch of Skidmark fans, so.
Oh yeah.
Skidmark has a great characterization, but a horrible code name.
Horrible.
I'm glad you mentioned that too. I deep dive too. There are characters that, because when you mentioned Skidmark, I mentioned that some iterations or later iterations they renamed him Treadmark, and I do note that actually in the character guide book. So it's not only just file card information, but I also have a little kind of history, like I call a service record, that shows name changes. It talks about if there was a change in their grade or rank over the years, I note that, or change in a military specialty. Little things like Tripwire version 2 or 3, he was the Tiger Fly co-pilot. Those type of things I note on there because people would know that, those little minutia stuff, right? And I wanted to make sure I capture that. And I also too, I'm glad you mentioned about everybody's favorite. One character could be somebody's favorite. The bulk of the book were based off the toy. Basically, if it had a file card, it was a toy, it had a file card, it had an entry in the book. But what I developed for volume 2 was I had space and room to actually create an appendix of characters that did not have action figures or toys. So I created entries that had, there we go, you can open it up there, entries for like Wade Collins or Pale Peony, all these characters. There you go.
I want to point out one thing. I just opened it up. This is page 170.
Did you find an error? No, don't tell me.
No. This is something I was hoping to find or catch you on.
Okay.
You have Headbanger as the first entry on page 170 of Command Files Volume 2. And he is from Sergeant Savage and his Screaming Eagles. So yes, you did that 1995 Kenner line. So I'm sure somewhere I'm going to find G.I. Joe Extreme as well.
Yeah.
So
I have little Easter egg nuggets too. I went deep into the lore and fandom. I also have, if you know who Hot Sauce is, I have a Hot Sauce entry in there.
Robert Atkins.
So if you comic book guys know, Robert Atkins was an artist in IDW, and he would sneak this character, a Hot Sauce, into some of his panels, into his work. Puerto Rican Joe. But he never, I don't think it's like meta information, right, Gary? You don't know it until it's not in the book. It's just meta.
Yeah, and he was in the background, and so as Larry is scripting, it's like, oh yeah, there's just some random dreadnought in the background, just completely ignores.
Yeah,
it's like he's there.
Yeah,
he was in the background.
And then for you Robot Chicken fans, I also had a Fumbles kind of entry in there. If you remember the old stop motion
fumbles.
Always fumbles.
Always fumbles. Yeah. So anyway, I really, Yeah, point being is I wanted to give a nod to those, even Captain Min, that character that helped the G.I. Joes in the Cobra Civil War. He has this thing. So I wanted to do a little bit of that. And then also I have an Energon Universe section for all you newer collectors of G.I. Joe. There's a section just to show which characters have appeared in this new continuity. So other things in the book that are really jazzed on is we mentioned Mark Pennington. We have an interview with him in there. He talks about his development of Outback and Repeater and all his work at developing characters at Hasbro. Second book has an interview with Ron Rudat talking about his process of developing characters. He shared a lot about his designing of Scarlet and things like that. The book also has a section by co-author Roger Taft of After Action Report. He writes an article about file names. You know, the file cards themselves have this little disclaimer that says this person's name doesn't refer to any known living person, whatever. But Roger linked thorough articles about the file names of some of those characters, which actually reflected real life Hasbro employees and how they kind of snipped their names into the file cards. So those kind of side character details are in there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just file cards. It's not just rich with graphics, but they're all side creator type information there too.
Yeah, because that was another thing I was gonna. Another point is, like, for the most part, we know in the early years, Hama drafted the file cards as, you know, that was originally his notes for the character to how to put them in the comic book. And then Kirk Bazigian was like, oh my gosh, we should put this on the back of the package. Which brilliant move by Kirk Bazigian. He shepherded this brand in the early years so well.
Yep.
And then of course, you know, Hasbro being Hasbro, like, oh, we can save money if we do it in-house.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to pay Hama like another $5 a file card, because poor guy, work for hire guy. But then they created the file cards, and then, like, some of my least favorite characters are from those middle years. Like, I do not like Starduster. I just sold mine to a friend because I'm like, I'm never going to play with Starduster. I collected him, and all he's going to do is sit on a shelf, look pretty. I don't want an action figure like that. And Super Trooper's the same thing. He's this basically superhero, and we will completely ignore the elephant in the room that Snake Eyes has been treated like the superhero in G.I. Joe comics. But there's a little more to it, and it's like, but in essence, we have the characterization provided by the file card, but then we have the interpretation of that file card by the various media sources.
Yeah.
And so you've kind of distilled it into, and presenting to this is a little bit of like a little bit of your own head canon, but also saying like, this is canon here, there, and in spots. Because there's definitely things like with Chuck Dixon, the very first appearance of Snake Eyes in IDW verse is Snake Eyes is very human. He almost loses to a viper.
Yeah.
And then he has to go back to the Rashikage to get his mojo back. And then, Aubrey Sitterson makes, Quick Kick at a level, at Snake Eyes level, if not better than Snake Eyes level. I famously criticized that issue very early on in this podcast.
Not only that, it's a totally different character, different costume, different file name. It was, I think, yeah.
So
you worked it,
yeah. So I really like the fact that you're providing like an overview and a distillery, because even like Casey mentioned Long Range like a year or two ago about Hama retconning Long Range into a sniper.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
I have a theory on that. I think when Larry wrote the script for that issue. I think what you're talking about is that one where I don't remember the issue now, but Alpine and Torpedo and Long Range are on the mountain. They're saving Del Burkhart.
It was around that time,
Yeah.
And I was surprised too that an artillery guy was was a sniper. But I think at the time too, maybe a little after, there were two long ranges, and I think Larry's script called for a long range, and maybe the artist SL Gallant grabbed the wrong one to model, or somebody did, and so they made that long range the sniper guy. Because in the Sigma 6 cartoon, I know you don't like Sigma 6, they made that long range the rolling the rock, whatever, not rolling thunder, but the command center, rolling command center guy. He had like an infantry, like marksmanship, like specialty. He would have been the guy. In fact, that's how I represent him in Command Files, as a sniper dude, who also does like logistics and transport stuff. But yeah, my theory is that the artist flipped it or got the wrong character reference. Anyway,
I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
but to that point, and I didn't articulate in this podcast that, and Josh mentioned that the book one is about A teams, where I actually took these file cards and I organized the groups into teams. These books aren't the file card, the entries in command files aren't in alphabetical order. They're like grouped in teams. So I have the Alpha team, which is mostly the OG 13. I have a cold weather team, a mountain team, a jungle team, and that mountain team has long range in there as kind of an engineer, but have that sniper piece, especially. But he is in there with, say, Hit and Run and Alpine as the mountain guys.
Nice.
Yeah, just because of that Larry Hama story too.
So with now Energon Universe exploding, potentially having a cartoon show based on it as well, adult oriented, do you see more updated entries based on the Energon Universe in the future for maybe potential future command files?
I did sneak in. Well, I mentioned for the second book I did mention the Energon Universe in there, but only in the respect of those characters that existed before in the comics and cartoons, and now they're showing up in Energon Universe. But I do have in mind for Cobra book to introduce to start making mention of it. I don't know if I have enough information to create entries, but at least maybe that appendix entries that mention those. But yeah, there should be some rollout for that. As you mentioned, Energon Universe, I do want to relate a funny story. I don't remember if I told Josh this, but in the latest issue, or not least, the Energon Universe G.I. Joe issue that had Shooter, if you guys read that one, that Night Force issue, there was a sequence where she's getting beat down by the other prisoner, and it also flashes back to her Shooter's growing up, having a father who was a gold medalist marksman, and also a veteran. And the sequence shows that she followed that same path against his wishes. The funny thing about that is I have that written in my book, in the Command Files book. That origin story is in there. But it got pointed out to me, like, I want to say 2 months ago, that that I can't actually find reference to that anywhere else besides my book. I didn't make it up. I know it existed somewhere. I tried to find it in wikis and blogs. When you go to when you go to the Hasbro packaging, the one that Mark Webber did in 2016, it doesn't reference that. When you go to Hama's file card that he wrote for the declassified trade paperback collected edition for that, they have a Shooter file card. It doesn't mention that. I got it from somewhere and I can't figure out where it came from. So I got to ask Mark Webber or somebody. Where did I get that? Because if you go researching it right now, face value, it looks like Joshua Williamson when he wrote that referenced command files. Anyway, I'm just saying. Okay, sorry Hasbro, but the only other thing I can think of is if Hasbro has some Bible that he gave Robert Kirkman, they gave Robert Kirkman and Joshua Williams, said, hey, this is the rap sheet for these characters, right around that. Maybe, I don't know, but anyway, just
some of the things
I discovered.
Well, that's like one of the things that Josh and I are discovering with his book is like, how do you look up all this stuff when he's mostly the source for most of the facts regarding comic books online on the G.I. Joe comics. So, so that's why Josh is like, Gary, you got to make sure. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting there.
Double check. Yeah.
It's a crazy thing because like I think it was in 2005, I started doing comic book summaries on Yojo, and actually before that, just a little before that, was that G.I. Joe Reloaded.com run by Phil Cost. He had a full comic forum, but that didn't last very long. But so then I switched over to Yojo, and so I mean, it's not a new thing for me to write about G.I. Joe comics by any means, and a lot of it's up in my head, and then I reference Yojo, and as Gary was saying, it's like I wrote that, or if I didn't write it, I created the page. I did the back end, create the page in Yojo and put other people's writings in there and then kind of verified it. So it's kind of like and then a lot of the previous other websites copy and paste from Yojo. And I'm like, well, that's, so it's all kind of the same thing. And of course, from the file card. So when when Greg was, coming up with all of his command files, he was using those references from the different things, and it's like, well, did I get it right back then? It's a very strange feeling now, more than 20 years later, to be like questioning myself if I got it right or not back then, because now it's pretty much what people use as reference. And recently, in this there's this James McFadden's book, Fighting for Freedom. He actually used After Action Report books as reference, and he put it in the book as a reference guide. I was like blown away, and it's so interesting because like that's what command files is for characters. So if people have the books, they're going to be like, well, I don't know this thing about thing, and they can either Google it or they can pull out the book if it's on their shelf, and then you become this like weird historian archivist of G.I. Joe, which is what I've come to realize that all my work for the last 20 years has been. And Greg's books are now proving to be that way too. So welcome to the historian, Greg.
It's funny that riffing off that, Gary mentioned my headcanon. You know how I said that I arranged the characters in teams, but there is a rhyme and reason how I did that. I actually structured it that way, trying to investigate what the G.I. Joe chain of command would look like. So that actually put me in a rabbit hole of trying to understand what a special missions force, an actual special operations force in today's world, how that actually structure, what the command structure would look like. So I went down the rabbit hole researching U.S. Special Operations Command, Joint Special Operations Command, what Army Special Ops looks like, what Navy Special Warfare looks like, and tried to piece together like what would G.I. Joe look like. So I created this huge org chart of how all the rank and file and officers relate. I don't know if either of you have the back of volume 2 to show, but I actually have that org chart created.
Josh and I are reaching for our books, respectively.
Yeah, I win.
No, I win, Josh.
All right.
Gary wins, dear listener, because Gary can control.
So all like 230, 40 Joe characters are in there in their special org chart creation, with General Joe Colton as the head Joe guy, with Hawk being the Joint Force Commander, So I broke it down in those terms. I actually modeled the Joe unit against like a real actual special forces company. The reason why I mentioned that too, going back to what Josh was saying, when I created that org chart, I actually had a side kind of website where I put down all my thoughts and ranked it all down. I didn't find until later while I was writing volume 1, researching things, that a certain fan Wikipedia actually took some of my ideas in terms of that rank style and actually used it in their wiki. Which I'm not quite sure if they knew what they were doing, but you can clearly see my designations, my teams, my classifications actually used in whatever they were doing in their like game scenario. What do you call it? Wiki. Yeah. Anyway.
Right, and we did make that into a poster, so even though it's quite small on the book, you can get a 16 by 20 poster. That was a part of the Kickstarters, and we do have them available.
That's one of those
sale, but we're planning on selling them.
Yeah, that's one of those infographics I did put together before it became a poster. I put out there on like yojo.com earlier on, and then His Tank, and fans on those sites were asking where can I get as a poster, and at that time I didn't have the means to do it. I didn't even think people actually wanted to have it a poster, and Josh and I figured out a way to upscale it and create it into an actual 16 by 20 poster, as he said. So that was pretty cool to do. Again, and then if you're paying attention, that poster, that graphic is the blueprint for the Command Files book, the literal table of contents, if you will, how it's like structured, how my mind thinks, I guess.
Well, the next thing up for Greg is the Cobra book. So it'll be Command Files 3, and that's Cobra. So he's planning that one out, and that'll probably be next year, 2027. That he didn't have as much of that made already, so he's got to make a lot more of that from scratch. Whereas, as we spoke about, most of the pages for these 2 Command Files were already made, so he just had to adjust them and add new stuff as necessary.
Yeah, but, I actually have to go undercover to infiltrate some terrorist organization to figure out how their organization structure works. I'm just kidding. No, I think my plan for that.
Dear FBI agent that has to listen to this, Greg is talking about the fictional.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Sorry, are there little like crawlers picking up keywords? Better not. Yeah, just to be clear. Okay, maybe. I'm sorry, Gary. I don't want to get in trouble.
Don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger.
Shame on me. I just watched the first season of Homeland like yesterday, and I shouldn't be paying attention.
Did you learn nothing?
But in all honesty, I probably won't have like an org chart like I did for G.I. Joe. I'm actually going to take. I'm actually constructing it now. I'm taking the tact of, what's it like as a Cobra trooper? How does he make it through the ranks? Like, where does he go? How does he get when he becomes like you wrote in the file cards? Trooper becomes an eel, and then if he's an eel, he becomes a snow serpent, or he becomes a hydro viper. I want to kind of mold that, right? Those type of things. Anyway, just things I'm dreaming up.
that could be an awesome story to almost like one thing that we talk, we know G.I. Joe is toys, but G.I. Joe is kind of like, and I just finished watching, Stranger Things, but Stranger, it's like all, D&D. G.I. Joe is kind of like a role-playing system in a manner of speaking with the toys, because we're given the characterizations on the file cards. And what we did as kids was we used it with our friends, or we completely ignored it. Depending on, available characters, it's, or, whatever. It's, you don't like have Hawk. Yeah. Hawk's back at base. Yeah. He's giving the orders and he's radioing it in. if you didn't have the Hawk figure. Snake Eyes is on some village in the Southeast Asia. He's not here playing today. He's not in this battle. But to do something like, the day in the life, like, how you did the organizational chart for G.I. Joe? I'm thinking like you should do a backstabbing chart for Cobra.
I mean, honestly, it's like it's more like a chart of verses, like be Cobra Commander versus Serpentor, Cobra Commander versus Destro, Destro versus Zartan. Serpentor or Baroness is in there, or like it's all these verses more than like who's Cobra Commander fighting today,
Yeah, Cobra Commander's enemy isn't always G.I. Joe.
No.
Well, if you read the latest A Real American Hero by Hama, he's setting the stage for the different factions, right? He has Cobra Commander getting the Springfield troops together. Then he has the Revanche guys on Cobra Island getting up together. And then Destro is rallying, building up his army, getting ready to do battle on there. So he has these the chessboard of the different factions going at each other. And they're not, I don't even think G.I. Joe was mentioned that issue. It was just all Cobra.
No.
On each other. But anyway,
So I mean, like that's where Cobra is dramatically more interesting than the G.I. Joe chain of command. You know what I mean? It's like you get all the bad guys, and they can't get along, but yet they can still try to rule the world or destroy it, whichever one they want. But I think that's the nature of bad guys in general. Like you look at a lot of different, even like. Like the He-Man Skeletor, like he always is insulting all of his people that are revolving around him. You know what I mean? That's all he does. Calls them boobs and everything. I mean, it's hilarious. And it's like Cobra Commander's kind of the same way of like let's just insult everybody and like be a crazy lunatic, and then everybody's like, well, let's get rid of him. But then he's so good that you can't. Well, they did shoot him and got rid of him for a little while, but ultimately. That's what makes Cobra so interesting, I think, as compared to G.I. Joe. You know what I mean? And who doesn't like villains that don't get along? They never get along in the movies either.
So Gary, since that was your idea, a backstabbing angle, I don't know, Josh, shall we assign Gary that?
Not yet. Uncle.
That's a great piece, though.
Casey, you got anything you want to ask?
I'm excited for the Cobra thing because me, I lean Cobra.
Okay.
Bad guys. I love Masters Universe, but I like Skeletor and I love the Horde. And I don't know what it is. I like the good guys, but the bad guys is always, I think, made cooler. So definitely look forward to that. Yeah,
they are cooler. I mean. Bazooka Soldier, Mortar Man. I mean, they're not that interesting. Infantry Soldier, Grunt. You know what I mean? Like they're not. They do cool things with those characters to a certain degree, but they're certainly not as entertaining as bad guys.
Yep.
All right, Casey, I might tap on you as soon as I start molding stuff together for this Cobra, because there's going to be more outside just the file card pieces, the file entries. Like I said, I'm trying to do an article about what it takes for Cobra Trooper to raise the ranks. I mean, there are other things that are going through my head that I kind of want to kick around. Josh and I were just talking about earlier. There's even though there's probably legions of Cobras, there's probably only like 25 like main heads that will have an entry. Everybody else is a Viper, Trooper, Driver, whatever.
That's where G.I. Joe is above a lot of other stories and toys because they have the awesome troop builders.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where, besides Stormtroopers, this is where troop building began, was with G.I. Joe. You want to build up all your Cobra Troopers, then the Vipers came out, and your Eels, Snow Serpents, they just kill it. And it's so good.
And then you go down the lines of repainting them to be Python this, Python that.
Yeah.
Oh, now they're working for Darklon.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, for this Cobra book, I'm not only going to talk about Cobras as we've been talking about, but there'll be a Dreadnought section, of course, an Iron Grenadiers section. I'll probably have something about Revanche, even though I don't have any file cards, but there's going to be talk about them. Red Shadows. It's going to be like fully heavy villain base, of course, but we'll have a nod to those guys too. Again, it's a 40-year-old property, which has good set of villains that we just need to give them in the spotlight. I think the only other note for the book 3 would be we'll probably get, well, hopefully, right, Josh, we're going to get Mark Pennington to do the third cover for Cobra.
Yes.
If we hadn't mentioned earlier, Gary, the two covers themselves, the images right now, Mark actually had them connect. So he has one master image put together that we're gonna, and then I think we have him on task. We're gonna ask him to have him on task to have the Cobra image connect to it. So you're gonna have like this. What's the word? Triptych?
It would be 3 books with 3 wraparound covers. So like the back of one connects to the beginning of the other, and we're going to use the on the cover for volume 2. We put Storm Shadow here in his Urban Commando, and then starting like right here will be the Cobra cover with him in his white. Cobra.
I remember. I think that was Pennington's idea too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he's already got it designed, but of course, we're more than a year away from that book. But it'll be what? Yeah, three covers, all as one. So I don't know if we could actually print that out. Maybe we could somehow make a big poster of it.
That would be awesome.
Horizontal poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if they're 3 separate posters that you can buy separately, and then when you're in your room and you tape them up, left to right.
Yeah, puzzle pieces together, right? Yeah.
G.I. Joe, remember the 4 puzzles? You'd buy 4 separate puzzles, and then they make one mural from like the 87, 88 series and 88, 89, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I got that somewhere. I haven't put it together yet. Got that 2 Christmases ago. I should have. Thanks for reminding me. I had to get to that. Get on that.
But all right. I don't know. I think command files. I mean, I've skimmed through them. I'm not going to blow smoke and be like, oh yeah, I've read them cover to cover. Just got volume 2. Just looking through it. So I've liked what I've seen. It is definitely a great reference guide. It's definitely something that I endorse. Don't have to buy it on my words, but it's something too that if somebody is at a con, go to the After Action Report booth and flip it open. Take a look through this. It's definitely interesting, and hopefully, I've supported all the Kickstarters, so I'm a shill. But
nothing wrong with shilling. I don't care what anybody says. If you love it, you love it.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed what I've seen, and I'm and I know I've only touched the surface as I'm working on other things myself, and it will eventually become a reference somewhere down the line for something we're going to work on together.
Sure. Oh, I forgot one other drop about this book, Gary, that wasn't articulated, is that the artwork on this, there's contributors from former Hasbro designers, current comic artists, fan artists. There's about, I want to say, Josh, 50 between the 2 books, 50 brand new pieces of art never before published that actually commissioned from the likes of Robert Atkins, Brian Atkins, Jamie Sullivan, Adam Riches,
Nito
Diaz gave us one, and oh my God,
a lot more.
Oh, and Rod Wiggum, the vintage Marvel artist, gave a whole bunch of new art for the book too. So it won't be just for the Joe artists, or sorry, Joe fans that have seen it all, they haven't seen these brand new published art, so it's brand new additions in there too. So, anyway,
Very cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps tonight's discussion up. I've been Gary at Chaplain Joe Pod on all your favorite social medias, basically Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And to you, Casey.
I'm Casey. You can catch me at Podcast from the Pit. All the same socials: Facebook, Instagram, X. Made a TikTok, but I haven't put anything on, so don't go there.
And also a fun Facebook group as well.
It is, yeah. It's pretty fun.
Josh?
So after action report books, all of them, we have 7 now or 8. I lose track.
7
are all available on afteractionreport.net, which includes the comic guides and the character guide books. We have the book that me and Gary are working on together. It's called G.I. Joe TNA book. You dirty-minded people, it's trivia and activity. So it's 300. Oh well, it's right now it's about 260 pages of quiz questions, trivia questions, and activities on the G.I. Joe continuity. So Gary's hip deep in editing that, and I'm writing whatever I can on that to be done very soon. That'll be available. And really, our only thing we are is on Facebook. We don't really have any other socials except for Greg with your Instagram.
Oh yeah. So as Josh mentioned, on afteractionreport.net, you'll find my 2 books, After Action Report Command Files, Volume 1 and 2. But my Instagram, you can find me there, all my G.I. Joe art stuff and designs. And if you go way back to 2013, you can see the very early designs of the Command Files, and all 100+ pieces of art there. My Instagram is G_unit2472. Thanks for having us.
No
and he's got
problem.
quite a lot of followers. So, and people, it was funny when we first introduced Greg as kind of part of the After Action Report with these command files. Nobody didn't really know him. But when we would say his Instagram, they're like, "Oh, I've been following him on his Instagram. I've been following him on his Instagram." They knew his Instagram, but they didn't know his real name. But now they know. Now they know his real name.
And knowing's half the battle.
And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I already follow him too. That sounds really familiar.
Oh, thank you.
See? Perfect.
So, with all that said and done, one final missile for the masses. Be decent to each other.
Good night, everybody.
Happy New Year, Yo Joe.
Yeah, Happy New Year.